It's been almost 48 hours since the passing of Nigeria's former president, Muhammad Buhari, whose death occurred just at about 4:30 p.m. Nigerian time in a London hospital at the age of 82. The last almost 48 hours have generated so many conversations around the life and times of this Nigerian leader, one who had been on the scene for several decades, spending over half of his years in public service, starting from the very bottom as a soldier, rising through the ranks to becoming a major general, and by 2015 had a whole new vista open up for him, becoming an elected, democratically elected, that is, president of Nigeria, going on to do 2 terms in office between 2015 and 2023. History has recorded that he is the first to defeat, politically speaking, an incumbent president in the history of Nigeria. A man who has been described as one who, again, on account of his personality and the attributes that he brought to the table, redefined and reshaped the political landscape in Nigeria. Today, we are not just only paying tribute, we are also doing a special coverage of all of the activities lined up to mark his burial, which we understand ongoing in his hometown of Dara, Katsina State, northwest Nigeria. We also understand that all else equal, by 2 p.m. Nigerian time today, he would have been interred. In the meantime, several announcements have been made. For example, today has now been declared as a public holiday across the country. In addition to that, the special Federal Executive Council meeting that had earlier been scheduled for today, we understand has now been moved to Friday, with President Bola Tinubu ordering all the members of the Federal Executive Council to be present in Dara today as part of activities to honor Nigeria's former President, late Muhammad Buhari. As a matter of fact, the number 1 citizen of the country himself, President Bola Tinubu, we understand, will lead other dignitaries to receive the body today in Katsina State, just before it moves all the way to Daura, where the family will have to perform the Islamic rites. But then the conversation continues as we continue to also look at the life and times of this Nigerian leader, a man who has been referred to as iconic in several senses of that word. To help us find some perspectives and beat this conversation into context today, I'm joined by Alhaji Muhammed Kalabuddin Nasiru. He's the head of international collaboration at the International Peace Commission. I'd like to say a big thank you to you. This is quite a moment of reflection for not just people in Daura or Katsina State, but for Nigeria, and indeed for people across the world who also had an encounter with back today, as someone who follows political history in this country, and of course we are not ignorant of some highlights of the life of the late former president. What are some things that you say you find remarkable about him?
Well, there are so many things about him that one cannot run away, because it's a fact. He is the only Nigerian that has so much things that he always put him at the forefront. Right from his being a platoon leader, when he was in the military, he rise through the rank, like you say, he became a general, and then a head of state, military head of state. And when he joined politics, he was the first Nigeria to create a movement, because I call it a movement, which give birth a political party then, in the name of CPC.
Yes.
That give birth to a kind of change. That change, because in fact that was the slogans at that time. And that slogan follows him up to APC.
Right.
So he bring about orientational change and behavioral change to not only the political class but to generality of Nigerians, where everybody is thinking that the only way, the only solution to the crisis then was for us to have a change.
Right.
So when you look at his person, late General is an icon on his own in so many ways. In everything you put him, you see he's taking number one. He has left a vacuum whereby it will be a very difficult for people to feel in Nigeria, not in Nigeria, in the African context, as far as leadership is concerned. That, I think, is a serious challenge for not only political class, but the generality of people in Nigeria here.
If you look behind you, if you were to go back to recent history, he left office just about 2 years ago, paving way for the current president Bola Tinubu to come into office. Some persons will say, well, he didn't look like. He was pretty much somebody who stepped away from the scene and decided to divorce, so to speak, himself away from politics and public life and all of that. Could that be a former, now late President Muhammad Buhari trying to say, I don't want to interfere in the government of President Bola Tinubu, or was it on account of maybe health issues and he was just trying to play it cool without the pressure of public life and all of that?
Yeah, that is the passing of General Buhari. Way back history when he was toppled. In the 80s.
Right.
Even though he was kind of detained for about 14 months, when he came out from he was silent throughout Babangida regime. He did not interfere. He didn't say a word to that military junta.
Right.
In fact, he did not say a word even when Abacha was the head of state. He was called for service to come and head PTF. Even when he was heading the PTF, he did not say a word when it comes to governance. And this time around, during and after the primaries, and even when after the general election, Buhari refused to interfere with politics. He said, when I came into the power, I am quoting him, I thought I campaigned, people choose me because of my integrity. I will allow you to choose the leader you feel is okay for you. And that was why during primaries he did not interfere. He did not interfere in the affairs of APC as a party.
Even as a president.
Even him as a president. Everybody confessed that he did not interfere. The governors, the ministers, the family and friends, and everybody that is closer to him went to him and asked him, who is your preferred candidate? He said, no, you do the right thing. Because he wanted to be a true statesman. He refused to interfere in the primaries. Even during the national election, he said he is not going to interfere. Let the people vote. This is democracy. Whoever the people of Nigeria feel is their choice, let them vote him. He is not going to interfere. And that is what he did. That is General Buhari for you.
Incidentally, it is quite it's a bit of a complex conversation. Late former President Muhammad Buhari was probably the most misunderstood Nigerian leader, especially at the level of being president. Right? Maybe that's an arguable issue. But why was this so misunderstood? It was as if there was a Buhari this way, and there was another Buhari that Nigerians and the general public saw a different way. Why was that? Why did we have that conflict or some sort of disparity?
You see, when you bring about this word complex, Nigerian hunters is a complex society kind of. So he tried to play neutral. So he's playing neutral in that accent, make him to become a kind of complex person. Because what you think this is what he should have done, he decided not to. He allowed naturality to take its course. He made sure as a president do the right thing, and he kept telling people, me, I will do the right thing, and I will expect you, if I appoint you or you happen to be in a position of leadership, do the right thing. God is watching, because he is so modest, he is so sincere. He believes that what he wants to do, that is what everybody ought to have done.
Right.
So that is what makes this word
complex come into being, people look at him, why didn't he do this? Why he should have, no. But he personally, because of his own conviction, he believed he will do the right thing, and that's why he stood. That is why people look at him as a complex president at the end. But the reality is that he want to do the right thing no matter what. Even if nobody want to do it, he himself, he say he will do it.
It's interesting because I mean, late former president Muhammad Buhari has been described as a man of discipline, a man of character, a man of integrity, selfless, and as simple as you can imagine, a man who you can say never owned an oil well, wasn't interested in real estate abroad or stashing cash away abroad. He just was a basic, austere, frugal Nigerian, they would argue. A man who was even saying as a president at Aso Rock that he couldn't wait to go back to his ranching, his cattle rearing and things like that, which is not very common in the Nigerian space and things like that. But that now puts a question mark, which has been the case for a while, over his choice of ministers and other aides once he came into office in 2015. In the first place, it took him 6 months to settle the cabinet. And by the time he had those gentlemen and women in that cabinet, there are people who say that the difference between the person of Muhammadu Buhari and the quality and caliber and the character of the people he chose to join him in that government as a team was like night and day. So how do we arrive at that point?
Yes, you see, this is democracy. There are stakeholders. There are other indices that you look at before arriving at that.
Maybe influences within the party as well.
That is what I'm coming at. When you look at he being an elected president, his on is to, I need so kind of people to feel so vacancy to help me move the country to where I promise people.
Yeah.
In a democracy, you have to give your own party a chance to bring about who they nominate, because there has to be a nomination from so many angles
across the country.
And each state is expected to produce a person that will represent that state in the Federal Executive Council. So the people actually, that took him 6 months, like you say, for him to agree, because they keep submitting. He will return it back, they will submit, he will submit and return it back. Eventually they now say, look, by the constitution you are supposed to by now have your own cabinet. Go with this list. Later on
you can review.
Which we have not seen. Why? Because he feel, since this is democracy and this is what they actually is prevailing on the people, let's go by it. You remember at that time, 2015, His Excellency Senator Bukola Saraki was the
president of the Senate. That's right.
When he submitted that list, personally, Senate President, because they were not in the same party, he tried to raise eyebrow, and that raising eyebrow brought about misconception between APC and PDP, and there is this wild outcry on the generality of people that Senates were actually undermining the President Buhari's effort to restore or to change the country for the better. That crisis loomed till the end of the first tenure.
That was in 2019.
Till 2019. It was there. But like you say, the difference between he as a president and the cabinet is like between like day and night. That was actually the right description. However, there's nothing anybody can do when it is a democratic settings. Influences are there, a lot of pressures are there coming from all angles, and there's nothing he can do. He has to just let go. Even at that, he keep questioning them. What I am hearing, whenever he hears them about any minister or anybody, he call and say, I heard so. Why? How is it like this? Why is it like that? Sometimes they tell him what they want him to be, and very unfortunately, when you look at his age, he's 70 plus. Then he is not like in the platform whereby he can actually see everything as it is. Like he is not in the social media platform where he can see it directly to the people. Probably that could have helped somebody, the people that is handling the handles for him on his social media were actually showing him exactly what they want him to. And when it comes to conventional media, they allow him to see what they want him to see. Even though he tries sometimes to break protocol and go cross the border and say, no, I heard this, I heard that, I heard this, I want this and that to be handled the way it should be. So the reason why, in a nutshell, why that disparity is because of the influences from either the party and the president group. That is the only reason why there was this disparity, that's the differences between him and his cabinet.
All right, we're going to take a quick break now. The special coverage here continues on Global Television. Of course, as we told you just a while ago at the top of this program, activities are ongoing in Daura and across Katsina State, northwest Nigeria. By the way, for just one reason, it's all about the final burial, as it were. I mean, the burial ceremony of former late President Muhammed Buhari, for whom dignitaries across the country and indeed across the globe have been gathered now in Daura, Katsina State, and we will continue to bring you the highlights as this event unfolds. We understand that President Bola Tinubu has led delegates there, including all the members of the cabinet. Of course, the who is who in Nigeria and beyond will be there. Most of them already there today to receive the body, which we understand has been flown in from London, where he passed just about 2 days ago. When we return from this short break, we'll look at the controversial elements associated with the life and times of former late President Muhammad Buhari. Stay with us, everyone. Welcome back, everyone. Let's talk about some of the issues that were not particularly resolved in the lifetime of former late President Muhammad Buhari. There are those who argue that the man drew a lot of criticisms and controversies by and to himself. For example, he made statements that were not only controversial but sort of gave an impression of whom people now see him to be. For example, there was a time, we have it on record, where he said that he would perform as a president, a certain percentage for those who voted for him, and a different percentage, this time a lower percentage for those who did not vote for him. And he said a couple of things, including beyond the shores of Nigeria, saying that Nigerian youths are lazy, and we saw how the youths, for the most part, also reacted to that position. What could have led, I mean, from what you now understand over time, maybe based on reflection and new information emerging, led to that making those statements? Could it be the pressure of office, I mean, leading a country of over 200 million? Or was it maybe the economic pressure, the policy demands, and so on and so forth? Or was it just a matter of age?
None. That is the man, General Buhari. He's so principled and so straightforwardness that he will say it the way it is and the way he understands it, even if that his statement will make him look in a negative way. And that is the reality. Okay, the statement he made when he said the youth are ready, I believe you will agree with me. General Buhari was in the line when he is in his 30s.
Right.
He became president before he became 40 years old. When he was
as military head of state.
As military head of state. Now, we still have military personnel. We have democratic, who is below 30 among even the state governors now. Below 30.
Of course, even since 1999, we've not had that.
Thank you. So if he called us or the youth then lazy, is he wrong?
So are the youth lazy?
They are not performing, they are not doing what they ought to have done to prove that they are not lazy. The people he also makes that statement open were actually there, and it is a fact, it's a reality. Nobody is coming up. He needs to see somebody who can challenge, like I said initially, that he has so many records which is unbreakable up to now. Let somebody come and try to see, okay, let me break this record. Let me see how I can match my record with this gentleman. But till when he demise, we have not seen anybody. All of us, including me, you, and everybody in Nigeria, because it's a fact. He threw a challenge to everybody there, and nobody took it.
He's also on record to have said that, I mean, this was in South Africa some years ago as the president, that he wished he was younger when he became president in 2015. And some people say, well, you knew your age when you were running for office. You tried in 2003, 2007, 2011, and then by 2015, I mean, fourth attempts, the door opened for you, so to speak. So at what point did you realize you were no longer a young man, or as young as you should have been, or expected or wished you were? Was that a statement coming from a place of regret, or was it just a yearning for the ability and the energy to do more as a younger person?
No, he was trying to actually translate what actually transpired even before he became the president. 2003, when he contested, we all know what happened. Of course.
Again, that was Obasanjo's second term.
Because that was when he started contesting.
Right.
2007, when he contested, before the election, even after the election, he said it, that if I lose, eventually I lose, I will not contest again. The age is not on my side. It is on record. But Nigeria, both in and abroad, persuade and forced him and beg. We see how they threw and forced him to come out and contest in 2011 again.
Against his will.
Against his will. So when he became president in 2015, because the second he contested the first time, he contested the second time, he said he's not going to do it. And the third time, he still contested and he lose. So, but when he contested for the fourth time, which he said, I said for the first time that, the second time that if I lose, I will not contest, but you people forced me to do it. Now, my conviction as a person, because I believe in Nigeria, I believe in what I believe in, that I need to see some real change, and the people coming forward to fight for that change are not actually the kind of people I expect they'll bring about that kind of change. I still have to come down. But if I come, I will contest again. And if I eventually lose, this is my final. But God has something for him. He won. He now say he regret it to say he is youth. He wish he had it those two contests
much earlier.
He will have done more. That is the reason why he made that statement. But people, like we said, always change it to the other way around. It's not as if now that he is not saying that what he requests or what he campaign for the people to vote for him to, he is not going to do it. No, he will do it. But he believed he would have done better if the energy he had that time was there.
How prepared would you say he was for governance starting from 2015? Because for the most part of the lifetime of his two tenures, I mean 8-year period, it was the anthem, so to speak, was always about the previous administration, apparently referring to the administration of former President Goodluck Jonathan. Of course, a man like Muhammed, who was the Minister of Information and National Orientation at the time, was more like the poster boy for talking about previous administration and all that. And he spent 8 years doing all of that. Today, Nigerians say that on the basis of that, he looks like he wasn't prepared for governance, because you won't spend that much time blaming the previous government, because you knew how bad the situation was when you took over in terms of security, the level of corruption, what else? Inflation numbers were not looking good at all, and overall, the Human Development Index was in a pretty bad shape and things like that. So on a scale of 10, how prepared or otherwise would you say the late former president was for governance?
So in the scale of 10, like you say, I am speaking now as a Nigerian.
Right.
And I am going to speak as somebody who analyzed in current affairs. Just the way you said, actually, the numbers, the points are not favorable to him. Why? Because the people he is working with are actually, like you say from your previous point, is like between their ally.
Right.
So in that scale of reference, I can put him actually, let's say 50-50.
So that's like 5.
Like 5.
Today, you look at the government of President Bola Tinubu. This is 2 years into office. His third year has started now, right? There's a back and forth now between some of the Tinubu boys, I use that advisedly, and then the people from the late former President Muhammad Buhari camp, as to the ones with, I mean, those who align with President Tinubu now say that, well, it was President Tinubu that made, quote unquote, the former late president, I mean, to be able to access Asarok in 2015. In other words, it was Tinubu who made it possible for him to be able to become president about a decade ago. On the other hand, we're seeing people like Boss Mustafa come out to say it never happened. That the former president, now deceased, blessed memory, continue to record millions of votes. 2003, 2007, 2011, at some point it was between 11 and 12 million, using just only the CPC vehicle, as it were. What does that say about the man, Muhammadu Buhari?
So, it is a very complex, I don't want to say statement, but a situation rather.
Right.
Actually, President Bola Tinubu played a very vital role in emergence of General Buhari as a president in 2015. It was not one person effort that brought about the emergence of General Buhari to become the president in 2015. Remember, the APC is more like a coalition. It is an
amalgamation of several parties.
There were PDP, there were CPC, there were AC, there were AD, there were ANPP then. So all of these people, and they are there. The Atiku come from PDP because he couldn't get the ticket from PDP.
Rochester Korocha brought a faction of ABGA.
Rochas brought ABGA. Malam Shekarau, the former governor of Kano State, was the leader of ANPP then. Brought ANPP to the merger. Then Bola Tinubu brought AD to the merger,
which at the time was ACN.
Which was ACN. Then and all other people that play a significant role, like the boss Mustafa said, Buhari was commanding between 11-12 million. So add up with this delegation, you will know that there is going to be a serious fight. And even at that, when you look at the total votes scored, was just 12 point something to 13 million. that beat former general.
So even with the amalgamation of these parties, it was just a fraction of votes that came compared to the block votes that the former general was recording the entire time.
Yeah. So when you say Bola Tinubu president was the one that put no, he contributed like any other people that contributed. Let's face the reality.
Right.
Because he himself at that time, he knew actually, yeah, he contributed. He bring about so many vote from Southwest. But when you look at even his own election now, how many vote were he able to canvass from the Southwest and from the AD or the ACN? Russia. It was still the vehicle of General Buhari that moved him to become what he is.
Even after death, there are people who still believe strongly, including those who even served, some of them who served with the former now late president, that he didn't have a grip, or if you like, a firm grip on his government. So it was very much an all-comers affair. For example, we have it on record where he had ordered a former Inspector General of Police to Benue State at one time when there was this heated insecurity situation around there, and the former IGP never showed up, and it took several months down the line for him to realize that that directive was not carried out, and he told Nigerians that he never knew, he was totally unaware that the man never went there. What does that say about his ability or absence of it to supervise those who reported to him?
That is why I told you those close to him only allows him to see what they want to see.
What they want. So does that now validate the theory of a cabal in his government?
Well, you have to agree with that. There was, but then he is human, like he rightly said by himself. He is human. He cannot be everywhere at the same time.
Right.
And like you said, the difference between him and the people around him is like day and night. So when you look at critically, you look at as human, he has some small loophole in the administration, but that does not disqualify the fact that he is, as far as I'm concerned now, the most honest, transparent, and democratically elected person we had in Nigeria from so far, the one we can testify.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break shortly, but let's talk about this for a second. Well, it is arguable that the former president, late Muhammed Buhari, is the most traveled president in terms of seeking medical help abroad. At a point, going by some news story, he had traveled for 140 days cumulatively, all in a bid to seek Medicare abroad. And people are wondering, I mean, you did 8 years in office as a democratically elected president. Nigeria may not be the wealthiest country or one of the 20 wealthiest countries in the world, but Nigeria is not so poor that it cannot establish 1 or 2 world-class health facilities. And add to that, the man passed on abroad. And people say it is almost unheard of that a president, a prime minister from Europe or anywhere, maybe across the Americas or even in Oceania, for example, would die in someone else's country, away from not just their country, but entirely from their continent. Wasn't that a pathetically low point in the lifetime of his government around for 8 years?
Well, personally, me too, I have the same view, but the reality you cannot run away from it, that we have a poor management. He should, as a president, establish at least, even if it is a state house clinic. Right. At a point in time, his wife come out categorically and complain that there was no simple syringe or PCN to administer to the patient in state house clinic. Right. When a lot of money is being budgeted every year in that same facility. However, he is human, like I said. And the way you reason or I reason may not be the same thing he reason. He traveled, actually he is in a recent time the most traveled president in our country, in our history, and he went for that same medical tourism, but he is not a professor. Our former late president Umar Musa also traveled abroad for the same medical tourism.
That's right.
And you will believe me, and everybody else will believe me, Umar Musa as well was one of the prudent leader we had. He was willing to take Nigeria to the highest height, even if that could have cost his seat at that time. He was willing to do it, because he was the first person to come out and say, the way and manner I become president is not legit, and I must correct it. However, he has not seen the day of the light to do what he wanted to do. So Omar Musa, was going to Saudi Arabia for medical treatment. General Buhari is going to London. Presently, President Bola Tinubu went to France for the same medical tourism.
I'm sorry, I have to bump in on you, so can take a quick break in the course of this discussion. There's so much more to talk about when we return, but we continue to follow the development on the ground for you in Katsina State, where late former President Muhammad Buhari will be buried shortly. Stay with us, everyone. This is Global Television. You're watching a live special coverage of the life and times of former late President Muhammadu Buhari, who will be buried shortly in his hometown of Daura, Katsina State in northwest Nigeria. Let's talk more about some of the highlights, very sterling ones, you may say. There are people in this country, whether in power, those who are not even within the political space, who believe that one of the several things that the former president, now late, did for Nigeria was that he was able to ward off the influences of, Brethren Woods institutions like the World Bank, the IMF, for example. He tried as much as he could within his power at the time to insulate the Nigerian economy from those extraneous influences that have always plagued government in this country, plagued the Nigerian economy. As a matter of fact, the opinion of some of these people is that if not for the efforts and the intentional approach that former late President Muhammadu Buhari brought to bear, the Nigerian economy would probably be worse off by the time he left office on the 29th of May 2023. Is that your sentiment?
Yeah, that's true. Actually, this external influence because of the capitalism approach in not only Nigeria, all the developing countries, was too, I can say, harsh. But he stood his ground. One of the complaints they keep saying is that he need to devaluate naira. It was, according to them, too strong. Even when I knew was feeling the impact that the naira was weaker. They put a serious pressure about the removal of subsidy, not only for fuel but for energy. The World Bank, the IMF, all the financial institutions in the world were complaining that, but he stood his ground. He refused to oblige to their total request. He removed some fraction of subsidy during his time. But when you look at what happened when President Bola Tinubu come, obliging their total request, see where we find ourselves in a mess of economic issue, allowing the naira to float from 400 to a point in time 1,800. Fuel from 100 to now almost 1,000 or thereabout. So allowing those foreign economic powers to intervene in your economic policies always give very, very negative impact to the citizen. Not only in Nigeria, it is all over the world, because they can only advise you to do what will benefit them, because they are capitalists.
President Muhammad Buhari, of blessed memory, is credited to be the number one, most likely, at least since 1999, who has invested so much in social initiatives, social nets as they call them, I mean social safety nets, social investment programs of all kinds. I mean, on our breakfast show this morning, we highlighted some of those programs. You had things like Empower, for example, which ran for a long time, bringing people from different spheres. Then you had things like Trader Money, Market Money, several of these initiatives. Anchor Boas program that was midwifed by the Central Bank of Nigeria, and then we had several like a series of reforms focusing on SMEs, because that government said it believed that small and medium scale enterprises are the engine room of any economy, especially for a developing country like Nigeria. When you look back today, what's your assessment of the impact of those laudable and very commendable initiatives?
Tom, I may disappoint you. Because actually, yeah, they were very laudable and very good initiatives, but the people managed was actually performed. They actually performed very below average.
So the late former president meant well when he rolled out those initiatives.
It is a very fantastic and a very good initiative. It was a very good thing. That was part of his campaign promises, that he will bring about social help. Or I am trying to remember the exact word they used during the campaign then, that they will bring social intervention.
Right.
But then when the plan was rolled out, it was very different. It was very disappointing. Though a lot of people benefited. I will say that it has not touched where it was supposed to touch, but in average, it has not yielded the desired result. But it is a very wonderful and very good and commendable policy.
Interesting. Let's talk about, time is fast spent now. Let's talk about the CPC followership. People have referred to the followership of former late President Muhammad Buhari as a cult following, because they say this is a man who doesn't throw money around. This is a man who wasn't materialistic. This is a man who didn't believe that you have to induce people financially for them to believe in your cause. You just had to pitch the idea to them and they will follow you naturally. However, the man is no longer on the scene. It's more like, he was the rallying point for the most part. So you are wondering, now that the shepherd is out of the scene, in the manner of speaking, what happens to the sheep?
I'm sorry to say, the sheep of CPC is no more, because it was an ideology for him, driven by him, and he is no more. It is not. When you look at the CPC contest and bring constitution of CPC as a party, bring that of PDP or ABGAO, it is still the same thing. But the ideology, the followership is based on the integrity of.
So the motivation is different.
It's different. Okay, now he left power just barely 2 years ago. Even before his demise, there was crisis within the CPC faction. Some like former secretary to the government, Babachir Lawal, former attorney general Malemi, and former minister of interior Arabasola are in one side.
Right.
Then people like former governor of Nasarawa, who was the only governor of CPC, Al Makura, and the former House of Rep, who was also a very strong pillar in CPC, then Farooq Aliyu of Jigawa,
right.
and the other people were on the other side. These people are saying that we don't support APC anymore, and these people are saying that we support APC 100%. In fact, Al Makura is one of the contestants
for the chairmanship, of the
APC. And he is saying that he is supporting Tinubu 100%. In fact, if above 100, he is willing to. So that ship of CPC is actually having a crack within the base.
That's quite interesting. On the final note, there are people who believe that the former president, late Muhammadu Buhari, has left a big shoe that is near impossible to fill, at least in this generation, for example. Talk to us about the possibility, I mean, this sounds a bit like a fantasy, of finding another character of Buhari, whether from the north or from any other part of this country.
I don't see that possibility in the near future. Why? Because he has built his name over the time. Over the time. All the political wings we have now, none of them have in fact 30% of the history or the record he had. So when you look at it, it is nearly impossible for somebody to fill in that vacuum he is living now, for now. I am not saying that it's not going to be somebody like him in the future, but in the near future or presently, actually, we don't have any person that replicate him.
It was said to be, I need to ask you this as we begin to wrap up now and continue to follow the developments in Daura, Katsina State for our viewers. If he was here, for example, given the late Muhammadu Buhari that you knew, in terms of his character, his discipline, his principles, and his hardline stance on issues of politics and governance and public affairs, for example, what would you say, or what would you expect his disposition or approach to be in terms of this coalition that is now set to be moved towards unseating President Bola Tinubu in 2027? Because whether you like it or not, you mentioned the CPC faction a while ago, which was the brainchild of the former late president. If you were here, for example, in good health, what would you think his disposition would be? Being that he also was a friend of the current president, they were the same party, they worked hand in hand, they walked to the same stage, and all of that.
I believe he will play, if he would have been around, he will still be the General Buhari, you know. He will play neutral. Just the way he played neutral during emergence of the present administration. That I know. He will not, because just of recent, during Salah, not this one, the other one, Ramadan Salah.
Right.
Group of coalition visited him, led by the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. Immediately after that, the chairman of APC, Abdullahi Umar Ganduje, lead another delegation, went and greeted
on the same day.
On the same day, or maybe a day after, at Kaduna. And he had heard his statement. He is saying that I am a statesman. So he don't have a party to support personally, but rather he is going to be an elderly statesman, whereby he will allow politics and the democratic settings to play its role. That I sure that's what he will have done.
Well, from your remarks now, I think we can only just continue to imagine what his role would have been in this regard, given the late former President Muhammadu Buhari that Nigeria knew, leading this country as a democratically elected president between 2015 and 2023. He passed on just 2 days ago, and activities are at their peak now in Daura, Katsina State, northwest Nigeria, where he will be laid to rest today, his body having been flown into the country a while ago. We continue to monitor these developments for you here in the course of our special coverage of this very momentous occasion for not just the people in the great state of Katsina or the northern part of the country, but for this whole nation, for Africa, and indeed for the world. We understand that the who is who, as they say, the creme de la creme will be there today to pay their final respects to the former iconic Nigerian leader, late former President Muhammad Buhari. I've been talking with Alhaji Muhammed Kamaluddin Nasir, is head of international collaboration at the International Peace Commission here in Abuja, Nigeria's capital. I'd like to say a big thank you to you.
You're welcome.
For coming to join us in the course of this conversation. We'll continue to track development for you, like we promised at the top of this conversation. I'm Muya Mofwegwe, and our broadcast of this special coverage continues here on Global Television.
Muhammadu Buhari, about 4 decades ago, as military head of state, inaugurating military governors following the 1983 coup. He would later spend almost 2 years leading what a section of Nigerians have referred to as the war against indisciplined military government. Buhari was born on December 17, 1942 in Daura, Katsina State. He joined the Nigerian military in 1961 and rose through the ranks, eventually leading the country as a military head of state from 1983 to 1985, a period during which he launched a nationwide anti-corruption and discipline campaign, earning a reputation for tough leadership. Following decades in public service and several attempts at the presidency, Buhari made history in 2015 when he was elected as civilian president under the All Progressives Congress (APC), becoming the first opposition candidate to defeat an incumbent president in Nigeria's political history. He was re-elected in 2019 and served 2 terms, focusing on fighting corruption, improving infrastructure, as well as tackling insecurity across the country. President Buhari's time in office saw the expansion of rail projects, social investment programs, and public sector reforms, including the Treasury Single Account (TSA). While his administration